It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Jefferson High School, where the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint rustle of papers filled the air. In Mr. Carson's fourth-period algebra class, students were settling into their seats, some groggy from late-night study sessions, others eager for another day of learning, or at least trying not to fall asleep during lectures. But what happened that day would ripple far beyond those four walls, becoming a lesson no one in the room could forget. Mr. Carson had been teaching math for over 2 decades, but his methods hadn't evolved much since he first stepped into a classroom. He prided himself on being old school, often favoring rote memorization over creative problem-solving. His jokes landed with varying degrees of success, and while most students tolerated him, there were whispers among the kids about his tendency to single out certain students, particularly those who didn't fit his mold of what a model student should look like. That morning, as he scribbled equations across the chalkboard, his eyes scanned the room until they landed on Marcus Thompson, a quiet yet sharp-witted sophomore sitting near the back. Marcus wasn't one to raise his hand often, but when he did, his answers were always correct. Still, Mr. Carson seemed fixated on him today, not because of admiration, but rather something else entirely. "Marcus," Mr. Carson said, his tone laced with sarcasm, "you've got such a reputation around here for being, well, let's say different. I thought maybe we'd give you a challenge today." He turned back to the board and scrawled a calculus-level equation, a topic several grades above anything the class had covered so far. The room fell silent, save for a few nervous giggles from students who knew exactly what this moment meant. Without missing a beat, Mr. Carson continued, "Go ahead, Marcus. Solve it. Let's see if all that talk about your potential is true." The comment hung heavy in the air, dripping with condescension. Some students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others exchanged knowing glances. But Marcus simply looked up, his expression unreadable. For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, without hesitation, he rose from his seat and walked to the front of the room. As Marcus approached the board, the tension in the room grew palpable. A few students whispered behind cupped hands, speculating whether he'd actually attempt the problem or walk away in frustration. But Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he picked up a piece of chalk and began solving the equation step by painstaking step. His movements were deliberate, each stroke of the chalk accompanied by a calm confidence that silenced even the most skeptical voices in the room. As he worked through the problem, murmurs of disbelief rippled through the class. This wasn't just any random guesswork. It was precision, clarity, and understanding that bordered on brilliance. When Marcus finally stepped back from the board, the equation was solved perfectly. The room erupted into stunned silence before breaking into applause. Even those who hadn't paid attention earlier couldn't help but acknowledge the sheer skill they'd just witnessed. But instead of basking in the praise, Marcus turned to face Mr. Carson. There was no anger in his voice, only resolve. "I'm not different," he said firmly. "I'm capable. And maybe next time, instead of mocking me, you'll remember that." The words hit hard, reverberating through the room like a thunderclap. Mr. Carson stood frozen, his face flushed with embarrassment. What started as a cruel joke had transformed into a powerful statement, one that exposed the cracks in his own biases and assumptions. What happened next surprised everyone, including Marcus himself. Word of the incident spread quickly throughout the school. By lunchtime, videos of Marcus solving the equation had made their way on his social media, sparking conversations far beyond Jefferson High. Students began sharing stories of similar experiences, moments when teachers or peers underestimated them based on stereotypes or preconceived notions. The school administration took notice too. Principal Anderson called an emergency meeting with faculty members to address the growing concerns about implicit bias within the teaching staff. Though some teachers bristled at the implication, others welcomed the opportunity to reflect on their practices and improve. Meanwhile, Marcus found himself thrust into an unexpected spotlight. Teachers who once overlooked him now sought his input in class discussions. Fellow students approached him for help with assignments, recognizing the depth of knowledge he possessed. Yet despite the newfound attention, Marcus remained grounded, choosing to use his platform to advocate for fairness and equity in education. He joined forces with a group of classmates to form a student-led initiative called Equity in Action. Their mission was simple: create spaces where every student felt seen, valued, and empowered to succeed. They organized workshops, invited guest speakers, and even hosted panels featuring educators committed to dismantling systemic barriers in the classroom. Through it all, Marcus never lost sight of why he started. "It's not about proving people wrong," he told his peers during one particularly moving assembly. "It's about showing them what's possible when you stop doubting someone's potential." While Marcus's act of defiance became a turning point for Jefferson High, its impact extended far beyond the school's hallways. Local news outlets picked up the story, framing it as a poignant example of resilience in the face of discrimination. Parents, community leaders, and even alumni rallied around Marcus, praising him not only for his academic prowess, but also for his courage and poise. Inspired by the outpouring of support, Marcus decided to take his advocacy further. With assistance from Equity in Action, he launched a campaign titled #ChallengeTheBias, encouraging students nationwide to share their own stories of overcoming prejudice in educational settings. Within weeks, thousands of testimonials poured in, from high schoolers recounting dismissive remarks from counselors to college students describing exclusionary practices in advanced placement courses. The campaign caught the attention of Dr. Evelyn Carter, a renowned sociologist specializing in institutional racism and education reform. She reached out to Marcus, offering to collaborate on a research project aimed at identifying patterns of bias in schools and developing strategies to combat them. Together, they traveled to conferences, spoke on panels, and consulted with policymakers to push for systemic change. Back at Jefferson High, the movement inspired tangible improvements. The administration implemented mandatory diversity training for all faculty members, revamped the curriculum to include more inclusive perspectives, and established mentorship programs pairing underrepresented students with supportive adults. These efforts weren't without challenges. Some parents resisted the changes, arguing that politics shouldn't enter the classroom, but the majority of the community embraced the shift toward inclusivity. For Marcus, the whirlwind of attention brought opportunities he never imagined. He earned scholarships to prestigious universities, received invitations to speak at national events, and gained recognition as a role model for young people everywhere. Yet amid the accolades, he remained acutely aware of the responsibility that came with his newfound influence. "I'm just one person," he often reminded himself. "Change happens when we work together." This mindset guided his actions, ensuring that he stayed humble and focused on lifting others up alongside him. As for Mr. Carson, his journey of self-reflection led to profound personal growth. He started mentoring struggling students, dedicating extra hours to help them build confidence in their abilities. He also became an outspoken advocate for anti-bias initiatives within the district, using his experience to encourage colleagues to confront their own blind spots. The incident with Marcus forced many at Jefferson High to confront uncomfortable truths about the hidden biases embedded in everyday interactions. Conversations that had long been avoided were suddenly unavoidable. During a faculty meeting, Mrs. Patel, a veteran English teacher, recounted her own experience of being underestimated early in her career because of her accent. "It makes you question yourself," she admitted. "Even when you know you're capable, doubt creeps in because others refuse to see it." Her words resonated deeply with Mr. Carson, who privately confided in Principal Anderson about his guilt over the way he treated Marcus. "I thought I was just teasing," he confessed. "But now I realize how harmful that teasing really was. I discounted him before giving him a chance." Principal Anderson listened patiently, offering guidance rather than judgment. "We all make mistakes, Mr. Carson," she said. "What matters is what you do next." Months later, Jefferson High hosted its first ever Equity Summit, drawing attendees from across the state. Marcus delivered the keynote speech, sharing his story with a mix of vulnerability and determination. "I didn't set out to be anyone's hero," he told the audience. "I just wanted to be seen for who I am." And if my experience helps even one person feel less invisible, then it's worth it. The summit marked a turning point for the school, solidifying its commitment to fostering an environment where every student could thrive. New clubs formed, focusing on topics ranging from racial justice to LGBTQ+ rights. Teachers collaborated to design lessons that celebrated diverse voices, while administrators worked tirelessly to ensure equitable access to resources for all students. Even small gestures carried weight. When Marcus noticed a freshman struggling to keep up in geometry, he offered to tutor her after school. That gesture sparked a chain reaction, inspiring other upperclassmen to volunteer their time as mentors. Slowly but surely, a culture of mutual support began to take root. As graduation loomed, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that fateful algebra class. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Bias and inequality were deeply entrenched issues that wouldn't disappear overnight. But he also believed in the power of collective action. Every conversation, every policy change, every act of kindness mattered. And so, as he prepared to leave Jefferson High behind, Marcus carried with him not just memories of triumph, but also a renewed sense of purpose. The boy who had once been underestimated had grown into a leader unafraid to challenge the status quo, a testament to the enduring strength of resilience and the transformative power of standing up for what's right.